Good morning, Green Nines. Today is the day we talk about acid precipitation. So, what we are going to do today is discuss and take our understanding of what an acid is. So, we learned last day that an acid is something that is found on the pH scale from 1 to about 6.9. The lower the pH, so a 1 or 2 is very acidic. And we're going to learn how acid rain can have an effect on the world around us. So today's learning intention is learning how acid rain can affect the environment, investigating ways that we as humans can positively and negatively impact this. How do I know you've learned this? Is you can identify the dangers of acid rain. You can explain the term neutralizing or relating it to acid rain, and you can identify ways to reduce acid rain. So here's just a little infographic, okay, showing you that's something you might see in like social studies and then interpret this. It says, well, we suppose there could just be a teensy bit of substance to this acid rain hoopla, and you can see that the world, or I should say North America, has some holes in it based off of the acidity of acid rain. So just a little thing there. So what is acid rain? Acid rain is when air pollutants mix with water in the air to form acid precipitation. So naturally, we have acid rain naturally forming. Acid rain can form from what we call the sulfur cycle. The sulfur cycle is a part of the geochemical cycles that we study in Bio 20. Sulfur is a naturally occurring mineral that you find or element that you find in our soils and in the air around us. And so when water and sulfur mix together, they make sulfuric acid. And so we naturally create acid rain, and it's not very dangerous. However, we are adding air pollutants into our atmosphere. So that's when it gets dangerous, is when we add more than is naturally occurring. So these pollutants are a product of a couple different things. So carbon dioxide from, for example, driving cars, nitrogen dioxide, again, from driving cars, and sulfur dioxide, mostly released from cars or factories. All right. As these carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide mix in the atmosphere, they form into different acids when they come into contact with water. So then they fall to the earth, and we refer to this as acid precipitation. Now it can be in the form of rain or sleet or snow. So you actually can't tell the difference between acid rain and regular non-acidic rain, okay? They look, feel, smell, and taste the same, essentially, except over time you will notice that acid rain can have an effect on an environment. So some of the effects that you may see that occur due to acid rain are damages to the aquatic ecosystems, lakes, and streams. So over time, the acidity will change the pH of the lake. So what does that mean? Well, a lake should be fairly neutral in pH because you have living organisms in there. So too acidic, they'll die. Too basic, they'll die. So you want to have a fairly neutral lake. And as the rain falls onto the lake, slowly that lake will become more and more and more acidic, which then causes plants to die. If there's not plants to eat, then the fish start to die. And if the fish start to die, then other things that eat the fish will start to have an effect. So it can actually have massive effects on entire ecosystems and lakes and ponds and streams because you're slowly killing the things that everything else needs to feed on. When we talk about farming, it can actually reduce the productivity of crops. So acid rain can actually fall and then hit your crops and do damage to them, which then less product means less money for farmers, less food for people. Again, we've talked slightly about harming vegetation. Vegetation is just plants. And then a big one is a lot of our buildings, older buildings especially, are made out of certain stones, limestone, for example, calcium, that actually will be eaten away by the acid rain. If you ever had the chance to one day go to Egypt, maybe one day you will, in Egypt, they have something called the Sphinx, which is by the pyramids. And essentially, it's a half line, and then the front of it is a human face, or what looks like a face. And it's carved out of stone that is there. Anyways, the Sphinx is famous for having lost its nose. But what you also must realize is that the Sphinx's face is slowly eroding away because as acid rain has been falling in Egypt or in Cairo specifically, it's eroding away, and the structures are very, very, very hard to see now. They predicted, I went there in 2009, I believe. And when I saw it, it was pretty hard to see. They said in 25 years, you won't even be able to make it out anymore. So it's not that far off. And it was already 11 years ago that I was there. So it's probably going to be pretty hard to see here soon. So when it comes to acid rain, like I said, acid falls onto these lakes and it causes the lake to become acidic. In order to save the animals that are there, we have to do something called neutralizing. So essentially, what does that mean? It means I'm taking an acid and I'm mixing it with a base. And what I'm trying to do is get that pH to come as close to 7 as possible. So what they do is they take this beautiful powder, which you can see here, called calcium carbonate, and they add it to the lake. When they add it to the lake, what it does is that carbonate, okay, and the calcium carbonate, essentially they neutralize, because it's a base, they neutralize the acid in the water. Limestone, or what calcium carbonate is the major source for this process. So we call this process liming, as you can see right here. Now there's a problem with this process though. The problem with this process is that it's expensive, and every time it rains and puts the pH back into an acidic pH, we have to do it again. And then we'd have to do it again. So this just temporarily fixes the problem. It does not solve the problem. So that's a little bit about acid rain and kind of the effects. You are going to do a little activity that tells you a little bit more about acid rain, as well as you are going to watch another quick little video that links to you about what does acid rain do to your body. So please get your notes down, and I hope you have a great day.